Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
the June 15th meeting of the Advisory Committee, River Advisory Committee of Exeter. Okay. So first order of business, convene the meeting. Second is minutes of the May 18th meeting. And first thing I want to say is that our recording secretary did a magnificent job of getting the names and spelling of all the people who were visiting us at the last meeting. And that was very nice. Thank you, Joanna. Now, the other thing I want to say is that we need to look at the minutes and fix whatever is wrong, okay? So on page 1, up at the top, it says Thursday, May 17th minutes. It turns out it's Thursday, May 18th minutes. So apparently Pam saw that and fixed it already on the version that's on the web, but it needs to be fixed here because the one I've been sending out has the wrong date. Any other comments on page 1? Knowing that you pored over it, I will go on to page 2. Page 2, in the middle of the page, there is stormwater planning grant through SRF funding. In most cases, when we have a three-letter acronym, we expand it so we know what it is. And that should be, I think, expanded to state revolving fund funding. Is that right? Does it sound right to people? Okay, so I would recommend changing, or at least expanding, having a paragraph after that that says state revolving fund. And now, any other comments on page 2? Any other comments on page 3? Any other comments on page 4? That brings us to page 5. And it says, Mr. Ingram moved to adjourn, Ms. Harmon seconded, all were in favor, and the meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
Wow.
8 p.m. So last meeting was 5 hours, right? So that's not right.
It seemed like. I wasn't here, but boy, y'all really worked hard.
Like it.
It did go longer than it typically does, but I had it at around 10 past 4.
10 past 4, yeah, I would say something over an hour, but not 2 hours. So they need to fix that or leave it out just as a...
If they paid us by the hour.
Yeah, well, there you go.
They do.
Okay, so I think that needs to be fixed. But other than that, I didn't find anything. These minutes are very exhausting and, a lot of detail about what
she does a good job.
She did an excellent job.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the May 18th River Advisory Committee meeting minutes as amended.
As amended.
I second.
Okay, Lionel seconds. Now, one thing I didn't do that I need to do for her benefit is a roll call so that she knows who's here. So let's do that.
Can we take the vote for it? We have a motion to say we have to take the vote first, and then we can do the...
Okay, so all in favor, aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining?
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay.
So right here, I wasn't here.
Okay, so now
correct?
we need to do a roll call so that she knows who's here for the tape. So Dick Huber, Chairman.
Trevor Matera, Conservation Commission Rep.
Rod Borden. Warren Biggins.
Lionel Ingram.
Nico Papakostan-Dees, Select Board Rep.
Carl Wickstrom, also the representative from the Water Sewer Committee.
Okay, and who are we missing besides Terry?
Dan Jones.
Oh, Dan Jones is missing. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we did the minutes. Now, the next thing is to ask Paul what he wants to tell us about the various river-related items.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the stipends a little bit as a recap. I said I would do that last month, but the real purpose of this meeting is to unfold a...
I think I forgot to press the button there.
is to unfold part of our fertilizer reduction efforts. And Ms. Kristen Murphy was following up with that with our consultants, of which we have a grant through DES. And with that, when she's done, she can come on over and talk to you folks.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Kristen Murphy, Conservation and Sustainability Planner. Just make sure I know how to do that. All right, so as Paul mentioned, about kind of a reinvigoration to an existing program, the Healthy Lawns Clean Water Program. But I thought I would start first with an overview about stormwater pollution. I know there's a lot of different levels of expertise here on this panel. I hope kept it kind of high level. And then I'll talk a little bit about the EPA's water quality permits that the town is required to follow, some efforts that we implement as a result of those permits, and then I'll dive a little deeper into the Healthy Lawns Clean Water Program. So Paul passed out the brochures and a sign for that, so that should have already gone around. So very high level, stormwater pollution basically happens when, good. Stormwater pollution happens when rain hits a solid
Joanna
surface.
Bartel needs one.
Yep, we can leave those here for her. When rain hits a solid surface that it can't absorb the rainwater, it tends to shed that water and it runs off. As more and more rain comes, that water will pool and it'll flow across things like driveways, roads, landscaped areas. And as it does, it picks up different types of pollutants. So that could be pet waste, that could be oil from your vehicle if you have a leaky vehicle in your car. It could be sediment, leaves, or fertilizer if you fertilized your lawn. So just high level, that's what stormwater pollution is. If we get enough rain, that water will actually flow across these landscaped areas and driveways and until it reaches a storm drain. And this is, I kind of enjoy, I present this information or similar information to this to the cooperative middle school 8th graders, and they all think, my first question is, where does the water go after it enters a storm drain? And 9 times out of 10, they think it goes to the wastewater treatment facility. But the reality is it doesn't. The majority of our storm drains, at least the ones that are properly installed, outlet to a low space, and those low-lying spaces, they're connected through a series of pipes, outlet 9 times out of 10 in a wetland or a water body like a river and stream. We have a huge network of these, this storm drain network. You can kind of see the pipes in brown. The blue is catch basins. And if you take one section of the map and follow it through, you can almost always reach the Squamscott River, at least in this part of town. So all of these pipes are underground, they're interconnected. So when water enters a storm drain, it reaches some significant water bodies. The other thing to keep in mind is when water falls through a storm drain, all of those pollutants that it's picked up along the way are not treated in any way through that storm drain. It might fall into a deep sump catch basin. Some of the sand and silt could settle out, but ultimately all of the nutrients in that water are being carried directly to rivers, to streams, brooks, and wetlands. So in Exeter, we have a huge array of rivers, streams, brooks, etc. This is an older map. This is a map from 2015, and what it's showing is Exeter's impaired rivers per the state. So these are rivers and streams that don't meet don't meet water quality standards. So rivers shown in the dark red far exceed the state standards. Pink is a little bit better, and blue is ideal. So you can see that although this is from 2015, we do have a substantial issue in our town with water quality. And we take a variety of steps to address that. The other thing to note is it's kind of hard to find a spot in town that's developed that isn't close to a river or stream. And then if you think back to the storm drain network, even though your house might not be right next to a stream or a wetland, you are connected to that stream or wetland through storm drains. Okay, so Exeter is one of 52 towns within the Great Bay and Hampton Seabrook watershed. As a result, we talk a lot about the health of Great Bay. It comes up in topics quite a bit, and that's because Great Bay is kind of the downstream recipient of all of our rivers and streams, right? They all flow through town, connecting to the Little River or the Exeter River out to the Squamscott, and then the Squamscott River ultimately connects to Great Bay. So water quality of Great Bay is something that's monitored on a regular basis, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But we have 2 permits in Exeter through the EPA that we're going to focus on today. One of them is related to the wastewater treatment plant, and that's our total nitrogen control plan. So we've talked about that in River Study Committee meetings in the past. And the other is our MS4 permit, and that addresses stormwater pollution in the core of Exeter's developed areas. Okay, so there are generally 2 types of pollution that's talked about, non-point source and point source. And so point source pollution, you can imagine like the wastewater treatment facility. There's a single pipe or a single location that you can point to that's the source of that pollution. Non-point source is different from that. It's more diffuse, it's multiple sources of pollution, it's not just one quick fix, it's more of a dispersed approach for treatment. So some examples of that would be unmaintained septic systems, runoff from agricultural fields or athletic fields. It could be, runoff from your front yard, your lawn, your landscape, etc. All of that stuff making its ways to the water bodies. So hot off the presses, and I hope that we can have an opportunity in the future to have an update from this report given locally, maybe. But we might have a connection here locally that can help us encourage that. Trevor obviously is with PREP, the Piscataqua Region's Estuaries Partnership, and hot off the presses is their latest 2023 State of Our Estuaries report. This is kind of the culmination of all of the data points that are gathered when we're evaluating the health of Great Bay. It's a whole consortium of scientists, land managers, et cetera, that have come together and prepared data for this report. One thing to point out from that report is this is related to nitrogen. This is one of the indices that they measure in Great Bay. And as you know, the levels of nitrogen in Great Bay exceed what we would consider a healthy system. But if you look at the 2017 to 2020 period, you'll see PS, the orange at the bottom, is point source. Those numbers are lower than they've ever been from the period of monitoring from 2003 to present, or till 2020. And that's a direct result of the upgrades that Exeter and other communities have made for wastewater treatment plants. So we're really making good progress, and we're kind of seeing the results of those efforts. One thing that you are also seeing, though, is the green there, and that's non-point source pollution, or non-point source non-point source of nitrogen. And those numbers tell you that we still have some work to do when it comes to non-point source pollution issues.
A quick question.
Yeah.
That represents everything in that previous map of all those towns?
Yeah, the previous map doesn't quite expand out far enough, but yes. Yep. So these are metrics measured from Great Bay, and there's several monitoring points, and that data is culminated into the result of these graphs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The TN load seems to have drastically dropped, but yet the green has not dropped. What can you explain how that happened?
So the green and the orange are percentages, right? So together
so
they'll add up to 100, right?
The blue points to the right. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so this is from a prior PREP report, but when it comes down to non-point source pollution, kind of those diffuse sources of water quality pollution, they've identified a variety of sources where that lead to this excess of nitrogen. One is atmospheric deposition, human waste, so that would be things like unmaintained septic systems, animal waste, so that could be pet waste that gets left on the sidewalk, or it could be runoff from agricultural fields, and chemical fertilizer. So we've worked really hard to manage our pollutants. In Exeter, we have regulations that are very strict on stormwater development. So when we have a new construction, we have a really high standard for what sort of stormwater treatment that site has to implement. We also have buffers, protective buffers around wetlands and water bodies to try to keep development further from our river streams and wetlands. So that's pretty proactive, and Exeter, kind of sort of is at the front of the, I think a lot of communities have caught up with us, but we used to be at the forefront, higher buffer, larger buffers, more strict requirements. And so we're doing a lot of work. We also manage our catch basins. So if you go around and you see that big giant truck with the hose stuck in a catch basin, it's soaking out that sediment that kind of filters out of the water. That's a really important effort for stormwater management, but it also does a lot to remove some of the pollutants from our water bodies. The other one would be street sweeping. People don't necessarily think of street sweeping as a way to keep nutrients out of our water, but it certainly is. Not just trash, but also nitrogen. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, Carl.
Is this a chart of total load, or is this nitrogen?
Nitrogen.
Just nitrogen.
Just nitrogen, and nitrogen
So the
from
atmospheric
non-point
deposition
source.
is ammonia or nitrate,
Sure.
acid rain or basic rain.
As it occurs, right.
Okay.
Not much that we can currently do about that. In addition to the, catch basin cleaning and sweeping our streets, we also have a pretty widespread network of pet waste collection stations. So this is one of the maps on our town website. As I mentioned, as stormwater runoff passes along, sidewalks and roads and grass, it picks up pollutants. That can be pollutants from pet waste. The first quarter of this year alone, they've started to tally how much is being picked up, and it's astounding. 1.3 tons of pet waste was picked up in the first quarter of the current year. So those pet waste stations are really an effective approach for reducing the amount of nitrogen. Just recently, about a year and a half ago, we partnered with Exeter Squamscott Local Advisory Committee and sent out notices to all septic owners in the town of Exeter, giving them information about the importance for maintenance. So we're trying to kind of get ahead of that human waste issue. We also offer a free rain barrel program out of Public Works. For a donation to St. Vincent de Paul, you can get a free barrel. You buy the kit at RJ's, and then you can have an opportunity to collect rainwater on your property. And is that a hand up or a?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I was just kind of waiting for a pause. You mentioned the septic. Sorry to keep interrupting, but you mentioned the septic, and a traditional septic does very little for nitrogen. Is there a program to try to upgrade some of the septic tanks to handle the nitrogen
So
better?
I would say to be determined. I know that that's some effort that's been kind of tossed around as a concept, but it's not fully formed yet. But there is a goal to create some sort of incentive to upgrade septic systems. All right, the other thing we've done is partner with some communities and installed rain gardens. And so those two things, although it's not intuitive that they're removing nutrients, what they're also doing as water is absorbed, plants can take up those nutrients. It also slows the amount of water that's washing across pavement. And so by slowing that down, it's less water collecting pollution, and it doesn't make it to, it slows down the process. So you don't have as much water washing into our rivers and streams. All right, so the other thing we did, so none of the things that I've mentioned talked about the fertilizer component, and as we saw in the earlier pie graph, chemical fertilizer comprises about just under 16% of the nitrogen pollution for non-point sources in the town of Exeter. So in 2016, 2017 timeframe, we passed a zoning ordinance that prohibits the use of fertilizer within Exeter Shoreland District, and so that prevents entities, or that requires entities to not apply fertilizer in those areas. We already had that same prohibition around our wetlands. And so that was one attempt that we made to try to reduce the amount of fertilizer reaching rivers and streams. Another one, through that program, we had an outreach effort where we provided kind of a Swayze Parkway lawn care techniques demonstration. So you learned how to calibrate a spreader, you learned how to read a bag of fertilizer, that sort of thing. And we also had an event where we brought in individuals from landscaping companies, taught them about some of the regulations. And then the last one was we invited those large turf owners in the town of Exeter to all get together and talk about, what these new rules might be and guidance for compliance. And we had a consultant with us, Chip Osborne at the time, with Osborne Organics. All right, so this year we're working to expand the Healthy Lawns Clean Water program. That was the initiative that all of the all of the zoning ordinance and the outreach. That was the name of that effort. That program is essentially in effect today, meaning we have a website, but there's really not some active promotion around it. We do have a Facebook page, and I'll post to that periodically. It's a pretty low number of subscribers, so it doesn't quite get the contacts that we want. So we're kind of trying to bring all of this information back to the public to make sure the public's aware. We had a consultant prepare the brochure that you received just before I started talking, and it's a kind of a nice tool that we can leave on our counters. People here can grab it and learn some key information about fertilizer reduction. It talks about how to read a fertilizer bag. It talks about the benefit of native plants. And most importantly, it highlights 5 simple steps that individuals can do on their properties to reduce the amount of chemical fertilizer that reaches our water bodies. So part of that effort, we're launching a lawn care pledge, and I would invite each and every one of you who live in town to take a pledge to follow these 5 steps and reduce the amount of fertilizer. If you do, you'll get a nice yard sign that'll look like this. It's about 11 by 7, so it's not huge and obtrusive, but it would be a great way to entice your neighbors, kind of challenge your neighbors to join along. And so once we get the website up and running, you can in fact, you can today scan that QR code and take the pledge, but we'll have more information associated with the website. So I thought I'd step really quickly through those different steps so that you get a sense for what those 5 steps will do and how they bring additional benefits. So the first step is plant natives, right? We traditionally have these very large lawns. Although it's great to have a lawn, they provide some significant purposes. It's good for your pets, it's good for your kids, it's great to hang out with your friends and family. We encourage you to kind of think proactively about the size of your lawn. Are you really using all of the edges of your lawn? Are there portions in your lawn that you could break up by adding native plants? And the beauty of that is when you do that, you will reduce the amount of effort you're spending mowing each week, right? It's not a low lift effort to mow your lawn every week. So it requires less maintenance. The other thing native plants do is they're more resistant to pests. They don't require as many nutrient inputs. They're generally better with water. They can manage droughts and they can manage, super wet conditions. And so they require overall less inputs than grass does. And they also provide habitat. So you'll have opportunities to introduce some wildlife species like, pollinators or birds right outside of your doorstep. So the second step is to mow higher. Traditionally, what we recommend is setting your mower to 3 inches or higher. That's generally close to the highest setting on most mowers. And that has some really great benefits for the grass. If that's all you do, say you want to keep all of the grass that you have in your property, just try mowing higher, and that actually will build you a stronger turf system. You'll have denser grass. That grass will have a deeper root system because you're not cutting off a larger amount of the blades. So it'll send those roots deeper. And it also helps it to, I think I said, resist pests and grow denser. So that's great. That's a simple, easy step that you could do. Another thing we encourage is for you to leave the clippings. So when you cut the grass, instead of bagging it up and carrying it to the back of your property or off to the landfill, if you leave the clippings on your lawn, it's actually a free, high-quality fertilizer. As those lawn clippings break down, those nutrients are available for the lawn to take up, for the grass to take up. And so it's free, and it prevents something from reaching landfills, or, I'm monitoring conservation land that abuts properties. I see huge piles of grass clippings at the back of people's property all the time, and it's just not necessary. It's kind of a free resource that people aren't taking advantage of. So the other thing that we encourage you to do, this is step 4, so I'm getting there, is to test your soil. UNH Cooperative Extension for about $32 offers an opportunity to test your soil, and that's not just the basic, that'll actually look at organic matter and pH. The reality is most mature lawns actually don't need fertilizer. It's pH adjustments that it needs, so the addition of lime, for example, but you won't know that with the mentality of just go buy a bag and put it down and something will happen, right? So we encourage you to test that soil. Then you can focus on what that lawn actually needs. Should a test indicate that fertilizer is needed, please take the time to read the product that you're selecting. Those 3 numbers that you see are nitrogen, potassium, and nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK. And so knowing what those are, if you have a really high number in the front, that means you're dumping a lot of nitrogen onto your lawn. You should also follow the application rates. Don't just, you don't want to store the bags, so you're going to put out as much fertilizer as possible. It's common for people to do that. You don't want to do that, because if it's not taken up by the plant initially, it really is just going to flow off your property, and it's a waste of money. So that's testing your soil. And then the last one is water wisely. It's not necessary to have sprinklers running on a regular basis. A lawn really only needs 1 inch of water each week, sometimes even less. If you have a good, diverse lawn, has a lot of clover, you can get by with even less than that. But that's from rain or irrigation. So pay attention to the weather. Don't just, set it on a timer and water regardless. So those are the steps in the pledge. If you're willing to follow all of those steps, please do take the pledge, and you'll get a nice yard sign in your front lawn. I'm hoping that you do share this information with your friends and neighbors. This is one important step that we can take to try to reduce the amount of nitrogen in our waterways, especially that from fertilizer. All right, I'm happy to take questions. Yeah.
Human waste.
Yeah.
36% of the problem.
Yeah.
Do we have a handle on the quality of our septic tanks in town?
No.
Are we going to try to make an effort to do that? I know that the town manager was in Massachusetts when they went through all that crisis down there, and he's hesitant about this. But it strikes me that there's a lot of people out there have no idea of the quality of their septic tank and how close it is to failing, or even failing.
I think that's pretty accurate. So what we first needed to do was figure out what properties had septic tanks in town, and that was an effort. We were able to get that from finding our sewer users and then kind of getting the inverse. We don't have information on all of them, when they were installed, when they're maintained, and what condition they're in. We just don't.
Do we have any idea how old they are, that we might just start that?
We really don't. We do collect information, I would say, in the past maybe 15 years, possibly more, of new septic systems. We report on that every year for the permits that I mentioned. But some of the older septic systems, we really don't have a sense for the condition of them.
Do we have a program that when someone sells a house, an active program to ensure the new buyer? Because I had an example. I had a Canadian and a Brit buy the house next door to me, and they happened to see we had a truck pumping our septic tank.
Yep.
And he came over and said, "What's that for?"
What's that thing?
And I explained to him, and he said, "I've never seen one of those before."
Yeah.
So it's sort of hit and miss. If we sell a house and someone comes from a big city, they are not thinking like this.
Yeah, and so we're trying to get the word out. We try, in the building department, we try to encourage people to get home inspections. Yeah. Right now, with the housing market and the condition that it's at, people aren't getting home inspections. They're lots of time buying property sight unseen. Yeah. We just don't have a mechanism at this time to really get ahead of it.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right.
How do you make the estimate here on where the nitrogen?
Oh, boy,
where those
I don't
come
know.
from? Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So
it's just like, how do you
it's
know?
complicated, and it's related to different forms of nitrogen, and I don't understand it fully.
Okay. So
So
it depends on-
I'm one of those just bite and swallow when it comes to like total inorganic nitrogen, total nitrogen, all of those components, I don't know.
Okay, so this is total nitrogen.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
Can we get these slides delivered to our recording secretary so they can go out with the draft minutes?
Sure.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
no problem. All right. Going once, going, no, thank you. All 2 years up. Oh, I did bring a copy of the state of the disclosure report that Nancy Barlow, you're welcome to.
Hi, Paul Philosophy, Interim Public Works Director. And are you sticking around till the end of this? Okay. Because I was going to talk about some of that prep stuff then. Okay. I was hoping Kristen was going to take maybe an hour, hour and a half with her presentation, but that didn't happen. And so as we were talking last month, about this meeting, we also mentioned that there is a potential of a special town meeting coming up because we've got the siphon project that had not been going along supremely. And we're going to need some additional funding for that. So with that, and this little presentation I got up here is going to be just snapshots from other presentations that we did previously over the last few years. So it's not polished, so forgive me for that, but it's enough for a discussion. So it's just a reminder of where we were, what our original intent was, and where we're at now. And also with me, when I mentioned this just yesterday to our consultants, it's like, well, what do you need from me, Paul? And I was like, I need backup. Just show up. And so we've got Kevin Garvey, project manager from Wright Pierce here, as my backup, and also the guy that knows all of the.
He looks like a good right guard.
Yeah, he does. All of
Kevin,
the,
you're no stranger to that seat this year.
Okay, so with that, let's see where we go. So back in 2020, we had a town warrant that was for the siphon project. And also at the same time, too, we were getting the Webster pump station off the ground, too. And because, and the dollar figure was 1.6. And that was because we've got two sewer sheds in town that make up those. This blue area, well, let's talk about the yellow area, flows to the Webster pump station, which is right there. And then after it gets to the Webster pump station, well, then it's pumped up and comes down through that red line right there, which, that red line is the existing siphon. And also what goes through the existing siphon is the blue area right here. That flows through the siphon area also. So if we were going to need to do something to the Webster station, and it's at capacity now too, We would also, because the siphons were at capacity, need to upgrade the siphons first. So that's why the bulk of that money was for a design and construction of an additional siphon barrel to add capacity to our system. And then what's going to show up later was the upgrade of the Webster pump station, which is under design now. And what the average flow going through the siphons today is about, just under 500,000 gallons a day. So this is the picture of our existing sewer system in the Squamscott area near the siphon. And north is to the top of the page. We have the Squamscott River right down the center. Over on the right-hand side, we got J.D. Hill Ave coming down and going behind the mill building, Clemson Lagoon here. And then over on the other side of the river is Swayze Parkway, starting down here at Water Street and heading on up to the north. So the sewer flows come down, the bulk of them come down to this inlet structure here. And there's also additional sewer flows from the back of the mill buildings that come across and tie in and goes through the siphon to this particular area, and then comes across the river and goes into our main pumping station, which is then pumped all the way up to the TPW facility where the new wastewater treatment plant is housed. Over on this side of the river, we've got a couple blue lines shown right about here. And those are sewer overflows, so that in times of rain, when we have additional flows from I&I infiltration and exfiltration getting into our sewer system, the capacity of the sewers could be inundated. So those blue relief pipes then are there to take that additional capacity so that sewer is not flowing out of manholes into the road, takes it to this point, and there are two sewer siphons going this way under the river also to Clemson Lagoon. Two 36-inch, and the existing siphons, you got two 8-inch siphons, about 56 years old. The slide is 3 years old, so it's about 58 years old now. And I thought this was interesting to put up here. This is the structure that houses or holds up those siphons underneath the river. So we'll start with these pilings here and this pile bent. These were put, it was open construction first of all, then piles were installed with this support mechanism, and you can see the 36-inch pipes on them, and sandwiched in between those are our two siphons right here. And those are buried 6.5 foot below the river right now. And there's cover over them, that sort of thing. And here's a plan view up right above that shows those 36-inch pipes in the blue, and then in the green are the siphons. So the plan back in 2020, because we needed additional capacities, was to put one additional siphon barrel across the river. And the location that was proposed is right here. We'll eliminate this existing inlet structure, create a new one where that box is, gather up the flows, and then put it across the river, and then eventually into the pump station. And then leave those siphons there, but the existing ones, and then fill them up with some sort of flowable fill or something like that, and leave the two existing overflows, those big 36-inch pipes, alone. As part of the design efforts then to add that additional siphon barrel, we had it in the scope for the consultant to get a contractor in to inspect our existing siphons and to clean them one more time for us. Because we've got equipment that can clean things, but getting it this distance, we're challenged with it. So we thought it was a good idea to take a peek inside of those. And when we did, we had some difficulty doing that. And there's, like I said, two siphon barrels, two 8-inch pipes. The north one is in blue, highlighted in blue for what we could inspect. The ones in green is the southern siphon, and those are where we could actually get into the pipe with the inspections and find out the condition of those pipes. And we kept running into more and more water, and we couldn't see through it. And here's why. So in those two little areas that we saw right there, and what we were able to see, we took some pictures in the closed circuit TV, and you can see inside of the pipe, and it's tilted a little bit. The flow should be on the bottom. You can see the pitting all on the inside of the pipe. Over here on this side, well, you can see the water on the bottom, so it's situated correctly, but that little white thing right there is water coming out of a hole in the bottom of a pipe and shooting up a little bit. So like, uh-oh, what do we do? This is unexpected. So we went and we did an amendment to the contract to patch a couple of these holes up and come in again and try to do a better job of inspecting this thing. Well, before I do that, this is the northern barrel. It gives it's the other pipe. It shows another flow coming into the pipe. And the one on the right doesn't look like too much, but it's already underwater, but you can see little pebbles and that kind of stuff coming into the pipe. So we did the amendment. Contractor patched up a few things, tried to do some more inspections. The highlighted colors are where he was able to inspect, and it didn't get any better. And so now we were in a quandary that we don't have a project that's trying to add capacity anymore. We've got a project that we've got to make sure that we're still whole, that side of the river, the flows on that side can make it across over into this side. So with that, the engineers went back to the drawing board, and they were able to design or start the design of a 3-barrel system now. And that would be 2 10-inch pipes for normal flow, and then for those additional flows that are when, that are at capacity, you have an overflow area that will work with the 12-inch. So it was really 3 pipes. It went from existing 2 8-inch to now 2 10-inch pipes and a 12-inch pipe. And part of our requirements when working for applying for the Army Corps permit for this is that Now we had to be at a depth of 16 feet below the river. So that's why it made a directional drill attractive, so that we could try to then drill 3 pipes across the river. Now, leading into some of the next slides, I got to say I plopped down a couple pink circles on that sketch up there. You can see one down here. That's down at the PEA boathouse. But we had, at the existing siphon, some very good detailed data of geotechnical work. Where was the ledge? What types of soils did you have? That sort of thing. And we had one over at Clemson Lagoon also. And then for the project, we did a couple of additional borings right here at the pit and over here at this pit to verify the conditions. Plus, we had some from the pump station project that was upgraded with our new wastewater treatment plant. So we had some pretty good information, and all of those areas had a ledge profile on it, but a ledge profile that would not be a problem with this depth. And this depth would be above where we were expecting to find ledge. So things take a while. And we're getting some estimates that we don't have monies for. So we had to come up with a contingency plan. If that siphon failed today before we had a construction project fixing this thing, what would we do? So let me get my bearings here for a second. This is J.D. Hill Ave now, coming down to Clemson Lagoon. This is the dike that goes over, and this is the pathway of the existing siphon and then across the river. We would have to put in a pump type system into a manhole there, and then be able to pump the flows from that manhole along the mill property behind this particular building up to their roadway entrance, across the road of Stringbridge Road, and then across Stringbridge to a manhole here in Water Street, where we were fortunate that we were investigating sewer capacities in that area already, so we had flow meters going on right before this project, so we knew what was flowing through there, and there is just enough capacity in those pipes to be able to handle this flow on a short-term basis there. So that was our contingency plan. If something should happen to the existing siphons, this is what we would have to do. And it was not fun that we had to figure this out, but it was prudent that we needed to figure this out. So I says, okay, we got 3 barrels now. We only were planning on 1. We needed an extra $1.2 million. So where's that money going to come from? Well, it came from Mr. Pappas pledging some congressional directed spending funds, some state ARPA, and some town ARPA funds. And so that gave us enough to go ahead and start, bid the project and to start construction. So we had contractor, Grenice and Sons, and his subcontractor is
ECI?
ECI from Vermont. Is their directional driller. And the plan was to start on the mill side, drill across the river, daylight on the Swayze Parkway side, and grab the piece of pipe and pull it on through. So the first picture on the left is the drill rig. And we started out with this spoon-looking drill bit. And because the data that we had through those borings said a spoon-type bit will work. And forgive me for the non-technical terms, but I'm explaining this how I know it, and if we need more information, that's why Kevin is here. And so that spoon bit is kind of cool because right behind it there's this aluminum-looking piece right here, and that had a gyro system in there so that they could track where they are left and right under the river, and also vertical elevation. So there's embedded in that pipe is a very expensive little gizmo that was helping us to understand where we are at any time with the drill bit. Once they would have gotten across the river, then they would have put this other attachment on the right onto it. And what that would have done is enlarged the hole. It would have been pulled this way through the hole. As it enlarged it, it would then have on the back side of this part of this polyethylene pipe that would be pulled through the hole. So the whole operation was going to be pretty slick, and I think within a week or so, you could have had a pipe through. But first attempt, they hit something at roughly 100 feet. They moved over, reset up again, and hit something about 100 feet, give or take a little bit. So that's what this yellow X is supposed to be designating, is what we now know is a ledge outcropping. So again, we were only having one drill rig, and which would have been fine if we didn't have ledge to deal with, but we did. So now you got differing conditions than a straight shot. You've got to now figure out how you're going to get through this ledge. And it went from a bid item now to time and materials for the contractor and subcontractor to work on this. And with that, you had to come up with a new game plan, because if you're going to be digging through ledge or drilling through ledge, you got to have a two drill rig type system. One, to do the initial drill, but once you get on the other side of the river, now you've got to do back and forth between there so that you can find the openings in the ledge that you already cut through, or else you might not make it back through again in the same location. And the way that the contractor did that, well, he got another drill rig, had to pause construction activities for a little bit to get that, and now he started over on the Swayze Parkway side of everything, over here. And how these drills go is you're going at a pretty steep angle. And then when you get to the elevation you're supposed to get to, you level out, and then you go level for a while, and then coming out, you got to bend it all back again. But, it's pretty technical, because eventually you got to pull a polyethylene pipe that does have a little bit of give through it, but it can't be that sharp that you can't pull the pipe through. So they get over and they start, let me see what I got for other sides first. I even forgot. There is now the new head that goes on the drill rig. And that was the first of a couple that was used over on that. And when they wear out, you got to pull that whole pipe out. I mean, the whole the whole connections and everything out to put a new head on, so you better hope you can find that hole again. And there was a couple times we didn't find that hole again and had to start drilling in ledge all over again. But that is the drill head for the rock. This is another piece of machinery that they have over there that you make some mud, this bentonite slurry, which is a clay, and that helps to lubricate the drill bit. But it also, once you're drilling in your substance, it also takes whatever you just drilled out and moves it back, and then you take the pieces out of it, and you keep recirculating the good fluid, but you take out the bits that you just drilled through. So this is what this machine is all about. It's the one that makes all the noise on Swayze Parkway. So after several attempts, and here's the drill rig over next to the main pump station on the Swayze Parkway side, right here. After several attempts, this is the drill bit coming out on the mill side of the properties after making it 800 and some feet across the river. And that was back in February. So finally, we were making some progress, not restarting. And now, once you have a 6.5 inch diameter hole, now comes your first pass with a reamer head. And this is a 12-inch reamer. What they do is they pull this across the river now, and it takes that 6.5 inch hole and makes it a 12-inch hole. And so the operation of this, you had this rig over here pulling the pipe or pulling the head from over here. And remember now we've got a shaft that goes from one to the other now. So as this pulls, the head then goes into the hole from here and starts enlarging through the ledge. Oh, before I say that, and I should have said this back with the picture of the 6.5 inch drill head. So the idea was to go down to the elevation you wanted to get to, level out, and then come up. But because that head is different, it's heavier, and whatever it is where we're supposed to be turning is, forgive the layman's term, muckier, it wasn't able to make that bend and go at the elevation it needed to. And finally, it would hit the ledge early, so not only did we have to dig ledge or go through ledge over here, but now we were hitting ledge over here just because we couldn't get it to, am I saying this right? We couldn't get it to go across. So now you end up drilling ledge for most of the distance.
So that's the reamer head wasn't able to follow the same path as the 6 inch?
I should have said this 2 slides ago when I was talking about the original drill head. And
oh, gotcha.
Let me go backwards. When I was talking about that one,
okay.
I couldn't level. We couldn't level out soon enough to get that across. So we started drilling ledge earlier and had to drill it most way across the river.
Got it. Thanks.
The reamer head was able to go through that hole. But when it got to roughly this yellow X, the shaft broke. Now you don't have a connection between the two. That's too bad the shaft didn't break on the other side. We could have backed that thing out, but it can't pull through what's not rotating. So we paused construction. And it was a very challenging time period of what the heck are we going to do? Who's responsible for this? And it got to be a little touch and go of what can we do? So during that pause, we were trying to see how we could map the ledge profile. Is there maybe a corridor that we can do a pipe that doesn't have this ledge that we've got a situation we've got to worry about? So there was a hope that we could get this seismic machine, and the seismic machine is towed behind the boat right there. And the idea was that they use this out there when they're trying to find water and oil and all kinds of stuff out west, that we'd be able to map the ledge in the whole area and find a corridor where we could put this pipe through. The end result of that, we learned in the day that they were out there, there was too much air in the soil, and we got very little useful data, if almost none. So much for that other corridor idea. But what was also being worked on behind the scene is the design itself. New Hampshire DES regulations, if you're having a siphon project, they want 3 barrels now. Back in the day, it was only 2. The consultants were able to devise a 2-barrel system that would work for both low flow and high flows. And then what that meant is 2 12-inch pipes. What we'd have to be a little careful of is making sure during the low flow periods that we can actually have enough velocity in those siphons to move that effluent along and keep settlement from happening. And with the pump station, and also with the new design of the pump station, we can build in where we could store some flows, and at night during the low flows, give it a little extra boost so that we get those cleansing velocities in that pipe. So the consultants told that story to the regulatory folks, and we were able to get approval now for a 2-barrel system, both of those 12-inch diameter pipes. Then as we that is the broken shaft. And we got a lot of theories of why it was breaking, and not that the contractor or the subcontractor would agree with us, but just know that there was a lot of talk and a lot of tension at this time. So with that, we are still worried about our 2 existing siphons failing. We don't have a game plan other than that contingency thing. So we worked out an agreement with the contractor. It says, listen, there's a lot of starts and stops. We're paying every single moment you're out here. Give us a lump sum price to put this pipe in. And the dollar figure that was $2.6 million. And the select board had approved that we can get a little 2.1 from the sewer reserves and an additional 500,000 from town ARPA. So the work that's happening out there right now is being financed by that $2.6 million expenditure there. And remember that those are sitting there, the sewer reserves and town ARPA, because it'll come up in a couple more slides here. So you already know what the drill head looks like. It was the same. It wasn't the same one. It's a new one, but it looked like that brand new one that was in the picture. And here is a slide of the reamer that is now taking the pilot hole that was successful for the second time now, for the, through that additional $2.6 million effort. And you have the drill rig right here. You've got the shaft that goes all the way across the river to the mill side. You've got this swivel right here that the only force is you're pulling on this, so you've got tension on that, and it's this machine over here that is doing the twisting, and this is what's interfacing with the rock. And you can see some of that bentonite slurry right here, the light gray stuff, as they are going. So this picture was today. And here is the mill side of the river with the reamer daylighting. So we've made it further than we have so far. And so some of the activity that you'll see coming up now is to take that head off, take it back over to the Swayze Parkway side, put a new head on a 18-inch reamer, and do the whole thing again. Now, after that one's complete, they'll take that 18-inch reamer, go to the Swayze Parkway side, put it back on, and then attach the pipe behind that. And the reason it goes through again is in case some debris falls in that hole down there, that the 18-inch reamer will take care of that and continue with the pulling of the pipe across the river. So that only leaves us with one pipe. We got to do another pipe. So during the negotiations with the contractor, we already have a fixed price for second barrel. We need to come up with additional funding of $2.3 million. And this is where I might need help on this. So, is it okay to continue?
Please.
Okay. Probably we got a request in for a special town meeting to finance our needed 2.3. But as it sits right at the moment, the funding request would be $3.5 million. Now, why is that? Because the town was using some of their discretionary ARPA funds. It can reimburse that fund. And it can also reimburse the sewer reserves that, people are getting a little nervous when you're using $2.1 million of the sewer reserves. And what makes this possible is there is the Clean Water SRF capability for a loan increase of the $3.5 million. So that's what makes that possible. There we go. So that was just me trying to walk through. You've heard almost every step of this in the past, but after you spread it over a couple of years, I wanted to refresh where we've been with this project. Of course, Carl, what's up?
So now we've got 2 holes, not 3, right? Or you're not going to have 3 pipes, you're only going to have 2. No,
we're going to have 2 pipes, correct.
You're going to have 2, not
correct.
3.
2.
Okay. And they're 18 inches in diameter each?
They're going to be 12-inch in diameter.
The pipes are going to be 12 inches, but the holes are going to be...
The drill? Yeah, the drill needs to be that big to make it through the bends that you're drilling.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so you've got 3 inches around on either side to move it, or 6 inches total, I guess, to move, as it needs to bend. Okay, I understand that. I'm just trying to get that. And now I've almost forgotten what my question really was. But maybe it will come back to me if I sit here for a minute. And maybe it won't. Move on. I'll figure out.
Since there have been so many surprises, how confident are we we're going to make this one work?
Okay, now.
Right now?
Question.
Pardon me?
Right now, you mean?
How
100%.
confident are we
100%.
that we've got a plan now that is not going to run across another surprise?
100%.
Pardon me?
100%.
Oh, good. Glad to hear you.
Yeah. I remember what my question was. That third pipe you said was for overflow.
Well, additional high flows.
Additional high flows,
yeah.
really, yeah. Over above the two 10-inch pipes. So now I'm trying to figure out the total amount of flow area, and I can't do that math in my head.
Okay,
But
well,
have we gone up or down in that total flow area?
Well, if you went at all of them flowing at capacity, you're going to go down.
Yeah, okay.
But, what we're trying to do here is account for future growth.
Right.
We got to make sure a system works for low flow and a system works for high flow. So at the very start of this, I showed existing flows, but also anticipated future flows, and we went out 50 years for that. That system, the 2-barrel, 12-inch system, can handle those flows.
Okay, so we're still good out to 2050 or whatever it was.
According to our assumptions, yeah.
Okay. All right.
100%, eh?
Right at this point, yes.
I notice your title's interim. Does that have something to do with you being able to say 100%? Is your interim, is that?
No, that's just me taking the place for a little bit. Any other questions?
Can Joanna get a copy of your slides to put
Of
with the
course.
draft minutes? Yes.
Again, but just caveat, there's old dates on that, it's old slides from other stuff. I just use them to help, as talking points as I walk through this. Okay, well, anything else on your agenda?
Do we need to meet next month too?
I would suggest yes.
July 20th.
Yeah, July 20th, and I'm going to tell you why. I would say, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think we need to have a river study meeting next month. I do think it would be wise for us to meet next month. And Kristen brought up, and we've got a representative sitting right here too, the prep study, of which she was, showing the results of the information. And they just had a day-long presentation of it a week or so ago. I wasn't able to attend, but I do know that they are offering to take that information to various places that want to invite them there. So with that, I called Kawamatsu and asked if he would be interested in doing something the third Thursday of next month, and for a presentation. And he goes, yeah, what would you want to hear? I says, well, I would like to know a little bit more about Exeter-specific contributions to anything. And so he checked his calendar, and it's looks like it's a go. So I would suggest that a prep presentation be done, and I don't remember what the third Thursday is.
July 20th.
July 20th. Meet here at 2 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. And at 2 o'clock, we'll have a 2-hour presentation by prep on the health of Great Bay.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure whether
It's not, whether this room is available or not.
well that, but also Terry Harmon has trouble getting here.
It's not a meeting. It is a presentation of which this board would be invited to attend.
Sounds good. I like that. Okay.
So no business will take place, just...
You're going to find out a whole lot of good information. And it's an opportunity, too, to ask the experts what's going on.
So it's more of a workshop than a business meeting. You wouldn't necessarily need a quorum.
We would not need a quorum at all, and then we would be the audience.
And this is the room for that, right? So there's enough.
We've had like the climate change, the Cape study stuff in here before, and I think there'd be enough that we could put the chairs and stuff in for. It wouldn't look like this. It would be, looking at that and all the chairs this way.
Okay, now I guess what's our involvement in setting that up? Can we just say that's what's happening? It'll happen?
Just show up.
Just show up.
Just show up. We'll take care of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Chair, can I say something?
Well, let me ask, do we want to schedule a meeting of this committee for August 17th?
No.
No. So what are we going to say is our next meeting?
Let's leave it open then, because the only thing that I can think of for a potential meeting is a discovery from our consultants of what he's finding out with Pickpocket Dam. If it's important enough to bring to you folks, I'll mention that to you like we've done in the past.
Okay, September 21st would be the next one.
I
Can't think that far ahead.
I'm trying to visualize our little yellow stars that we had in that calendar before, and it's eluding me right at the moment. It's not soon, put it that way.
So I probably should inform people that we'll wait to see whether we're going to have an August 17th meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, you had a point to order.
Thank you. Back to the siphons. I share the confidence that the interim director has, and in fact, the board has shown confidence in our team since this was first brought to us in late December. And for those of you that may not watch, every select board meeting since the beginning of January, Mr. Velasic and at times Mr. Garvey have been here to update the board and the folks in town that pay attention on all of the things that he's gone through. We also did a op-ed piece in the newspaper, and Mr. Velasic, the town manager, and I did a 16, 17-minute video to inform the folks about the progress, the difficulties, the challenges, but also the confidence that we have. Mr. Velasic negotiated a lump sum agreement, and I know he mentioned that, but essentially meaning that if there were any difficulties moving forward, the town wouldn't be issuing any payments, correct, on that work?
Yeah, there was one condition in that, but other than that one condition, yes.
So the select board, again, as he showed you in the slides, appropriated some sewer reserve funds, some ARPA money from COVID. And we're petitioning the court in another week or so to approve. It requires an approval. It's a big deal to have a special town meeting. And it is a big deal because you're asking folks to come out of the ordinary voting period and you're asking for additional funding. So you just don't do that every day, every year. And the court does have to approve it. So this is work that needs to get done. And I just want to give Mr. Velasic and Mr. Garvey and their teams a lot of credit because they've stuck with this. They've kept the select board informed. They've kept the folks in town informed. And I share the confidence that he has primarily because he's leading this initiative.
If it doesn't happen, he's not going elk hunting, right?
But in all seriousness, I'm bringing this up for a reason because if the court approves a special town meeting, there's two stages like any other town meeting. There'll be a deliberative session. And that would be on July 11th. And it would be an evening deliberative session. And more than likely, it's going to be across the street at the town hall. It would be like any other deliberative session, but it would just be on this warrant article, potential warrant article for that sum of money. and then it would go to a regular election that would be held like any other election from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Tux Center for this one particular warrant article. And again, if the court approves that, it's scheduled for August 15th. So I just want to inform you, this has already been announced at select board meetings and it's been posted, but I want to take the opportunity at this meeting to say it once again for those that are watching and for all of you to understand, and maybe recruit folks to come for deliberative session and for the election. This will require 60% because it's a bond article. And it really has to get approved because this work has to get done. So I appreciate the couple minutes you've given me to plug this and also to echo the confidence that Mr. Vlasic has. Thank you.
August 15th is 2 days before August 17th, which would be the third Thursday in August if we were going to have a meeting. So
All right.
this is sort of colliding with that, I guess. Not sure exactly what I should say. I mean, should I plan to have a meeting so they reserve the space? Or should I say wait and see and we'll tell you? But, you know, we might come up, you know, with not enough time to reserve the hall and get the word out.
Okay, I'll leave that up for you to decide. How I worded this was if there was some issue that came up with the consultants on the Pickpocket Dam, then I would bring it to your attention that I thought it would, your opinions or the information needed to get out sooner, then I would let you know. I don't know.
Okay, possibly we'll be involved with the August 15th, and maybe the next time that we would have a river committee meeting would be the September 21st, just on the pattern that we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll figure it out.
So if you put the August 17th meeting in the books, you can cancel it that day.
Yeah,
It's easier to cancel a meeting that's in the books than it is to, you need to have 24 hours to schedule a meeting. So if you put it in the books now, it's, you know, we know it's tentative. I mean, even that day or the day before, if you feel the need to cancel
okay,
it.
and we could conceivably have a meeting 2 days after the August 15th event?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, well, that's probably the right answer then, we'll do that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I say something? To a slight aside, but while we were talking about stormwater, and we have Paul up here too, I just want to do a quick thank you for Paul as a resident of, living down in West Side Drive. The public participation that Paul's really been leading throughout that project has been, I really appreciate it. I think that's been great and really encouraging folks in that neighborhood to participate. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for saying.
Yes. Well, do we have other business? Seeing none, a public comment? Any public? All right. So I guess we could entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Lionel has moved to adjourn the meeting. Nico has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? Unanimous.
Nico, can I raise the subject? This is a long-term subject.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.